You did this?
Oh, yeah, you want to see the video?
Yes, definitely.
Welcome to Decoding TV's coverage of the Pitt Season 2. I'm David Chen here with Patrick Klepek. Now, in the past, generally on Decoding TV, I'll ask Patrick, hey, what did you think overall of the episode? I think we just generally like all the episodes, so I'm going to skip that part. We're just going to go straight into the cases. But I will read an email from someone's suggestion. Jorge writes into decodingtv@gmail.com. Hey, gents, writing in to strongly recommend you start naming your Doctor of the Week. Star Trek The Next Conversation podcast does Crew Member of the Week, and it's always funny or interesting, but deciding who contributes the most that week to the team, and the Pit very much has crew member vibes. Whitaker, for example, is my crew member of the week in episode 4, not just for catching the heart attack, but for engaging with the nurse and security crew despite obviously being seen as an outsider. And after he was snubbed by one of the nurses earlier, he was told to get permission from an attendee like a child, but he did it respectfully and proved he is an excellent doctor. Anyway, just a suggestion, end quote. That comes from Jorge writing into decodingtv@gmail.com. Great suggestion, Jorge. We will do that. We're going to try to do a Doctor of the Week. I'm just going to say, I don't think we should use the criteria of who made the most contributions. I think we should just
I just think it's your personal doctor
your personal
of the
doctor.
week.
Yes. Whoever you think is like the MVP of that week for whatever
that's
reason.
the criteria I took in when I was thinking about this for this week.
Yes. So we will try to do a Doctor of the Week every week here on Decoding TV in our conversations about the Pit. We also have another email that I'm going to read later on. We'll do the feedback at the end after we cover all the cases this episode. So Patrick, let's get into it. Let's talk about the cases that occur in this week's episode of The Pit, Season 2, Episode 5. So there is the case of the woman that has the sort of skin infection. And this is kind of a classic ER style situation where the person comes in and they seem like they're totally fine. And then something happens that's bad that like progresses extremely rapidly. And like, they're conscious, they look totally fine. And then like by the end, they're in a really disastrous state. And that's what happens here, and what there are some interpersonal dynamics going on as well that are important. First of all, Langdon gave her Keflex at first and thought it was fine, and come back if it's becomes worse. And Dr. Robbie is really mad about this, even though as what's her name points out, the nurse. What's the nurse name that I can't think of right now? The Academy Award winner. She points out he would have done the same thing. Catherine Lanassa's Dana Evans. That's what I'm thinking about. Points out he would have done the same thing. So anyway, that's one of the things that occurs in that plotline. Another thing that occurs is he's trying to get surgery to come down. They send like somebody who it's like their first day on the job.
God.
And then he's like taking photos and he gets really pissed because he's like, I actually need an adult.
Okay, Jesus Christ. Go get anybody else from your service down here. Shamsi, Miller, Walsh.
I don't know any of those people.
Don't take this personally. I just need a fucking grown-up down here.
And then adult comes. But then what happens is she won't do, I think it's Garcia comes down and she won't operate unless they have like the proper tests. And so he is so pissed that he just slices into the patient's leg to show that what's going on is what he is proposing, which I don't think is proper procedure, Patrick. I don't think you're just allowed to like inflict wounds on patients. Maybe you are, I don't know, but it doesn't seem right.
It's like once a week you get like a little treat where you can just like
he cuts through the woman's leg to prove a point and to say like, hey, this is this result is what I say it is. You need to take her now. And Garcia is not too happy about that.
When do you start your sabbatical?
Tomorrow.
Not a moment too soon.
Anyway, pretty interesting, pretty cool like plot to like trigger all these other interpersonal dynamics. I thought. Patrick, any thoughts on that one?
I'm glad the show is doing this, but boy, it makes me uncomfy. Is not liking Dr. Robbie. Is like, you're being a mean little bully, Dr. Robbie. Like you have some unresolved other issues that you're allowed to interfere with your work. It's why when he rips into the patient's leg, like it makes that incision, I was like, there's a 50-50 chance that he's totally wrong. And like, it feels like the show is leading up to a moment where there's a lot of this season in particular where it's like, and Dr. Robbie, on pure guttural instinct, knows how to skip a step and like get to the right conclusion so we can prioritize the patient and what's best for them. And he allows like his personal issues with Langdon to cloud.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like, I think this patient probably ends up where they're at, like no matter what, but like it does feel like the show is setting the stage for, I don't think anything was going to die at Robbie's hands, but I do think he's going to be wrong at some point, and because there's so many bricks being laid along the way of him, look, he just gets it, just let him do his thing. But what if that thing is wrong, which is the whole point of sometimes you do a thing and it's not actually the thing it's going to be. So I'm enjoying the tension. I'm enjoying the audience kind of pinned into a corner where you always want to be with Dr. Robbie, but they've made Langdon seem so fucking sympathetic. You cannot help but come on, man. It's okay to be awkward, but it's not okay to be this indulgently mean against somebody who is doing the steps you prescribe them to do.
Yeah. There is a moment when Dr. Al-Hashimi says to Dr. Langdon, he talks about how maybe Dr. Robbie doesn't appreciate him, and she says, well, he's not going to be around very much, and I appreciate that you're here.
I loved that part.
And Dr. Langdon almost is shocked at the kindness. He's like, oh my, what is this feeling of someone being nice to me? I don't understand. So that was a cool moment.
And it's also great for that character because for Al-Hashimi, it's not, the show's doing a really good job of not making her one-dimensional, right? She is not the admin from management that I've seen just a tiny bit in season 2, but was a presence in season 1. It's well, when the management comes down, they're going to yell at us about customer, patient satisfaction and getting more people out, yada, yada, yada. And she fits a version of that role. But the fact that they're giving her reasonable complexity, not just with her relationship with Robbie, which now is almost flirtatious, but then also recognizing this is a doctor that needs a pep talk and shouldn't be treated this way, and is not going to Dr. Robbie and saying, hey, you're being inappropriate, but the appropriate thing to do is to tell Langdon, good job, I'm excited you're here,
right,
keep working hard. These are shoes that are all going to drop and really that's the excitement. It's oh, this is all a little too simple. At some point I feel this is going to get real gnarly, and I just don't know what the consequences of that are going to be.
I do appreciate that the show understands that we don't want to see Al-Hashimi and Robbie fighting all the time. They do have a mild disagreement this episode of stop treating me like one of your residents and so on. But they have largely seemed to reach a better equilibrium and understanding of each other. And I think the show understands seeing two people fight for 15 episodes is not very pleasant when what we want to see is people getting along and helping solving other people's problems. That's where the show's really well in its wheelhouse. So I like that the show's kind of changing course on the Robbie Al-Hashimi relationship. There's the story of Orlando Diaz, where his daughter's trying to start a GoFundMe. They try to figure out how they can lower their hospital bill. Dr. Robbie's girlfriend comes in and explain, or whatever, I don't know what you want to call her. Romantic interest comes in and explains that the hospital will cover 40% of the bill, but it could still be over $100,000, which is, it's interesting to me that he knew that immediately, but fair enough. But then the medical student, Dr. Kwan, figures out a way to admit him into med-surg, which will be much cheaper than having him admitted to the hospital for many days. And then Kwan reveals that she had to work the system when her grandmother had leukemia and and was uninsured. I thought this was cool because I think it is very accurate about how a lot of people need to do things that the system is not designed for because the system is not producing outcomes that it was designed to produce. And also, it's nice that Kwan actually contributes something meaningful instead of just scowling and kind of being generally very condescending. I like that she's actually helping out for once in the show. But yeah, I mean, people need to work their way around the American medical system. There's no price transparency in the American medical system. It's not like you can just shop for options. There's one point where he says, how much is it going to cost? And the woman says, I don't know. It's going to be around this much. You can't it's not like a conventional market.
I stay here for a few days. My bill could be over 100,000, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
And so it's just made to be maximally inconvenient. And I like that this plotline spoke to that a little bit. Patrick Klepek, any thoughts?
Well, and I appreciate the creativity because this is not, no shade at the caseworker or anyone else that's just sort of being plain with the facts about well, this is going to save money and it'll be cheaper than the other thing before. But when they start actually spouting the numbers, it's folks, that is still
Right.
And like $30,000, you know what I mean? Like it's just an astronomical amount. They were 20 grand, I think they were talking. It's still an astronomical amount of money to be burdening like a family that obviously does not just have that in the bank, even if they pooled their resources together. But especially in the ER, where like in the ER, you have to take people in, and like that essentially becomes in like some ways like subsidized by the taxpayer as a result of like our chronically inept healthcare system. As people slip through the cracks, they end up in the ER, and then we all have to pay for like massively expensive, and stuff like that becomes normalized. And I have to imagine like numbers like that and processes like that become normalized, where you just hand somebody off to a caseworker, they'll get you a better deal, but like you eventually, like through sheer repetitive nature of the job, like lose sight of like other creative ways you could try and help people on an individual basis, because you can't be that creative on every case because you have 7 other cases you're thinking about and you have to move on to the next. Like it's all very reasonable, but I thought it was a really cool moment to have somebody. And also let me dodge the whole, like, is this going to be an ICE subplot? Feels like it's not going to be. It's like, whoo, for like better resolution to this one.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm going to pull back the curtain a little bit and let people know that there was one. So speaking of notes, there's a subplot in this episode where Dr. Santos can't get her notes down. And then Dr. Al-Hashimi tries to sell her on the AI again. And speaking of notes, in charting, there was another version of this podcast that we're doing right now, Decoding TV, where a friend of mine is a doctor, and I was trying to get them to appear on the podcast, and she may still appear. But I had this idea of like maybe she appears for like 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of every episode with me and Patrick, and then talks about how realistic some of the subplots are, and then Patrick and I review the episode. It hasn't happened because my friend, who is a doctor and has a family, is busy. I know that's shocking. But I did get her to watch a couple episodes of the show. And she did. One of her reactions was, when do these people have time for notes? Because apparently that's a huge part of being a doctor. And so I think the Santos stuff speaks to that, and the AI stuff speaks to that. So I just wanted to like shout that out. But talking about how like doctors are so busy and they have so many cases, that's what made me think of that. All right. There is the case of Roxy Hamler, who's 42 years old, a home hospice patient with lung cancer. She's had a seizure and is on lots of pain meds, and her death doula shows up. For those who don't know, it's like a birth doula, but for the end of life. And so it's someone to help her like transition into death. And I was a little worried about this because I was like, are they going to make death doulas seem really silly? But I don't think they do that. I actually think it actually becomes the opposite, where it's almost like an advertisement for death doulas. Like, this is how a death doula can help. This plot line, we've talked, Patrick, about how some of these subplots really hit home for us. I would say this one really hit home for me. People who followed my journey know that my partner has for many years struggled with a pretty debilitating spinal condition. And so like the emotions and the dynamics in this episode with Roxy and her husband, I think really struck home to me. There's this part when she apologizes to him. She's like, I'm sorry for this, and he says, you have nothing to be sorry for. That is a conversation that has played out in my household, where some physical thing has occurred that requires my attention, and I've had to help out in some way, and my wife has felt very bad about it. And you kind of just see it laid out in this, where it's like, oh, it's no one's fault, people just struggle with the things they struggle with. So I did want to give a shout out to this. There's some weird vibes going on in the subplot though. Like there was all these like close-ups on Dr. McKay. Did you have any interpretation on like what was supposed to be weird about this?
I don't know that I picked up on anything weird. And they've given, the only thing I guess I would say is there does seem to be a connective thematic tissue between many of her cases, right? Like she starts the season by like, I really need to get laid, and then has multiple people hitting on her, and then has a case with like an ex, a broken up couple who like it sounds like they might have still been together had they identified a health condition. Like there's something about like relationships and love and misconnections that is like kind of running between a lot. So I attributed the way she's looking is more just like, boy, I'm having one of those days where like I'm getting a lot of the really tough, heart-wrenching cases.
Fair. That might be it. You know, there's a moment at the end where she tries to go to the bathroom and has to use a bedpan instead. And
I was wondering more that like would there be some friction with the death doula? Like the
Right,
whole,
but there
the whole
wasn't.
idea with the
Yeah.
doula is like someone advocating on your behalf, like pushing
Yeah.
things further than you might get, like, you know, advocating by yourself. And that maybe that instead it was very like positive, wholesome take
Yes.
on something that people probably don't really think about.
I don't think, you know, Patrick, people who, again, have followed me for a while may know this, but I don't think we talk enough about death in our society. You know, like I think it's like something that everyone goes through, and we don't talk enough about how to prepare for it. Like I think because most people prefer not to think about it. And so the idea of a death doula, I think, is very foreign to a lot. Why would I need to hire someone to like help me? But it's like you hire someone to help you with like taxes. You hire someone to help you with like, you know, all these other elements of life. Like, why wouldn't you hire someone to help you with like possibly one of the biggest transition you might ever go through? You know,
Well, and especially in this situation, like I think they set up like a really
yeah,
like this is a relatively young couple, right? Like these are like the ages of these folks strike me as like not too far, like a couple years older than like my wife and I, who are in our early 40s, and like they have 2 young kids. And so we're not talking about, not to say that like a like you know, a middle-aged couple with no children, like oh well, you should be able to figure that on your own. But like the notion of a death doula who is there to help spiritually and emotionally and physically unburden you while you also take care of the other things in your life makes a ton of sense for like their exact setup too.
yeah, agreed. So very positive depiction of the death doula so far. We'll see what happens next week. There is the case of Mrs. Randolph, a woman who comes in with hyperactive bowel sounds. She's constipated, and because painkillers and magnesium citrate did not help. I have had a family member who has been constipated and drank. Like, I have had a family member who's been constipated before and went through all the different things. Like, you start with laxatives. You know, you move on to magnesium citrate, like, which is like really powerful, and then you move on to, you know, more extreme measures even than that.
A finger in your butt.
A finger in your butt. Anyway, she's constipated and magnesium citrate didn't help. And so they're worried that it could be it could be a small bowel obstruction, or it could be something called sigmoid volvulus, a life-threatening emergency condition where the sigmoid colon twists around its mesentery, causing a bowel obstruction and potential vascular impairment. At least that's what Gemini tells me. Anyway,
sounds bad.
but it turns out to not be that, and so they just need to get this impacted fecal matter out, and they do that manually, and Ogilvy gets shit on, and that's kind of the whole plot line. Also, Santos ropes in Whitaker to help with this, and Whitaker, because she's still mad at Whitaker for reasons that I'm not super clear on. Patrick, do you understand why exactly what's going on there?
I think she's gotten better. I think they're roommates basically, right?
Yes.
So it's like,
Yes.
I do think like one of the refocusing parts of the character this season has been Santos isn't lashing out at everybody, and I think lashes out at Whitaker because she knows he can take it, and they're like closer, you know what I mean? Like they live together. So I think a lot of that energy ends up getting dumped in his direction, much like many juices and other fluids were dumped in his direction in season 1. It does feel like we have found a new character to take that on in season 2. Side note,
but I just like Whitaker coming in and saying, "This is a med student procedure. Like, why are you asking me for help with this?"
What do you need?
Some help with a disinfection.
That is a med student procedure.
But you know, she's doing it anyway. So anyway, yeah.
My side note, I was clicking through IMDb. I always keep that up when we're talking about shows, so I can like reference actors and characters. And I think I'm saying this correct. Who plays Whitaker? Garen Howell, I think might be the actor's name. I apologize if I'm getting the pronunciation wrong there. I was looking through like, what else has this man been in? This man loves video games or love voice acting in video games. He's a little boy in a window in Lies of P, a really excellent Souls-like game from a couple of years ago. He voiced several characters across the Xenoblade Chronicles series on Switch and Wii U. He was in the very obscure From Software PlayStation VR game Deracine playing Herman. Just delightful little thing to learn. And also, I may try and find out who represents Garrett House so I can use that as an excuse to try and chat with him.
Dude, let us get Darren Howell on Decoding TV. That would be amazing.
I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do. I've got a couple angles I can work here with the video game stuff.
Garrett Howell, Dr. Whitaker, we'd love to talk to you here on Decoding TV. Okay. Moving on. There is the case of Gus Farney, a 54-year-old victim of assault with blunt trauma. They do this thing called a tunnel blade exam, where I guess he bites down on the thing to determine whether or not he has a mandible fracture. He does. It's extremely painful. Or a tongue blade bite test, I think is what it's called.
Ouch.
Sorry, not tunnel blade. I apologize. Tongue blade bite test. And so he's all messed up. There's this dynamic with the security officer, the police officer, jail worker, prison officer, whatever, who's trying to keep him cuffed at the whole time, even though this guy's so messed up, like it's unlikely he poses a danger to anyone. The thing about this that I thought was kind of interesting was that I think the idea that this plotline was trying to convey was sometimes as a doctor, or frequently as a doctor, you get a patient where you can't even, literally no one knows what happened to them, right? Like they come in, they're all messed up. The security guard didn't see what occurred. The guy can't talk. His jaw's all messed up. And so it's like, you just kind of have to like guess at what is wrong. And I think that's just kind of interesting. That's kind of played out here. There's also a moment where Dr. Al-Hashimi figures out a way to suture him up because his skin keeps breaking. So she kind of figures out this technique or this tool they can use. And I think this episode is showing that Dr. Al-Hashimi is like very competent. She's not like completely inexperienced. There is a moment where Dr. Robbie compliments her and says, some great MacGyver work here. And Dr. Whitaker says, does a Dr. MacGyver work here?
MacGyver move, go for it.
Does it have Dr. MacGyver work here?
And if you are millennials like Patrick and I, that quote probably made you feel incredibly old.
It was really good. That cracks, especially because like it wasn't just like one character. Like sometimes you'll set that up, or like one character catches the reference. It's like no, two of them just like whoosh.
I don't know.
Yeah,
really good, really good.
There is a woman who is, I believe, unhoused named Miss Yardley with a bad cough. Ogilvy thinks she has pneumonia, but she actually has tuberculosis. And Ogilvy has been exposed, and so then they need to test him and see if he has it, and they need to notify everyone. It becomes a whole thing of like infection protocol and so on. But yeah, he seems very shaken by the whole thing. But then Dr. Santos, which is, by the way, there's a thing where like everyone on the Pitt knows all the statistics of what's going on in America. I don't know if you know that. Dr. Santos says, 70% of people who work in ERs need to go on meds for tuberculosis because they've been exposed, or and it's like, wow, Doctor, you just had that at the tip of your fingers. That's amazing.
It does. I mean,
that's like every character. Every character has all these stats.
Yeah, but I just feel like there's so much memorization required to be a doctor that it also would not shock me that people also like be really good at like trivia or random stats. That's like the opposite of me. I have to write everything down, keep like copious notes, reference things. I can't even imagine being like a server at a restaurant. It's like, remember 7 things. Like that's not going to happen for me.
Every time I'm at a restaurant and they don't write it down, I'm like, I'm worried you're gonna forget it. And usually they don't forget it. But
when I have to like go up and like get like a full tables, like if you're like a a restaurant where you got to go up to the bar to like a separate spot, like
Apple
people
Notes.
are like, oh, it's just like 4 burgers and 3. It's like, no, I'm gonna write down 4 burgers.
Yes,
like
that's right.
I'm sorry, this stresses me out to try and remember 7 items at once.
Yeah. So anyway, those are all the major cases that happened this week. There is actually one other case that's related to an email we got, so I want to talk about that. There is also the case of like this guy, Alex, who got a chest burn with dry ice because his brother was trying to brand him with their family crest. And I thought this was going to go in a different direction. I thought this was going to be a TikTok trend, because I don't know if you know this, Patrick, but there's been many TikTok trends where that are essentially like getting people grievously injured or killed. Have you heard about these? Right? Like I'll just name a couple. Ding Dong Ditch, is one where you ring the doorbell and then and then some people have gotten shot because of that. There's the
hold on. Okay. I was ding dong dishing when I was a kid. That's not a TikTok thing. Like that was like bread and butter you're 12 years old going down the street. That's not a TikTok thing. Ding dong ditching is a long held tradition. The difference is the proliferation of fucking guns in this country that has gotten worse even since I was a kid.
Hold on. Okay, so just FYI, I'm reading here from Reddit, right? There's a viral challenge on TikTok where people violently slam and kick on doors.
Okay, that's different. I'm just saying, you said ding dong ditch.
It's called the Ding Dong Ditch Challenge.
Okay.
It's not the same.
But I think it'd be very reasonable for someone to listen to that and be like, wow, Dave is like really upset about people like ringing doorbells and then running away.
Just like the weed is different today than it was back then, the Ding Dong Ditch Challenge of today is different than what you kids used to have back then. And so, yes, it's violently slamming and kicking on doors. It's definitely gotten people grievously wounded and killed. NyQuil chicken. You heard of the NyQuil chicken? Cooking chicken.
Many of these are overstated in terms of like their actual.
I'm just saying, like, people have been trying to do these trends on TikTok, and they've gotten good. And that's what I thought this was going to be.
Right.
But it's not. It's just the brothers just loved each other, and it was kind of boring. There was no real payoff.
Right. This is like the version of like last week's with like the family with too many medicines. Like all like it's like, oh, I guess we need. There's always a filler case.
This is the filler case. This is the filler case. But Patrick, I am curious. Are you afraid of your kids doing dangerous TikTok trends? Is that a thing you're worried about?
No, I did enough stupid shit when I was a kid that I have to allow my children some grace. Just don't film it. You know what? Do some dumb stuff. Just don't film it.
I think we're in this world where the filming it is the reason they do it in the first place, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I get emails from our school about TikTok trends, and then I look them up, and I was like, I think they call this a moral panic.
You're like, my child is not so stupid that she would do this.
Most of these things that rise to getting a news article written about them are not actually nearly as egregious as they are.
I don't know about egregious, but like widespread, I think is the word you're thinking.
Yes. Like one kid makes a NyQuil chicken.
Right.
Millions of kids ironically riff on the NyQuil chicken, and then the belief is like our kids are eating NyQuil chicken in the basement, and like they're not.
I would agree with you overall with what you're saying, but it is true that people have gotten hurt doing TikTok.
Yeah, no, for sure. So,
a small number of people, but Darwin Award winners probably, but still, it's a thing to watch out for. On that note, we did get this email from Summer writing into decodingtv@gmail.com. I really enjoyed your discussion of episode 4 of The Pit. I'm writing specifically to talk about your discussion about doctors on social media. I was a little surprised that the focus was mostly on doctors promoting their services, though. In my experience, a lot of doctors on social media are actually there to share information, not to recruit patients. A good example is Dr. Mike, @DrMike. He is a well-known doctor who monetizes through YouTube and his podcast, but he uses those platforms to educate his audience, not to drive people to his practice. He also cites sources when he's making a point of debating a topic, which I really appreciate. Another doctor I followed since medical school is Joel Bearvell on TikTok. He focuses on health information tailored for Black people and people with darker skin. He highlights differences in how diseases present and calls out research bias towards lighter skin tones. Now that he's an actual doctor, there's still no sign he's using the platform to attract patients. He's just putting out genuinely useful information. Both of these guys monetize through ads and content, not by funneling viewers into their practice, and both are transparent about who they are and what they're saying. So here's my question. If a doctor on social media has verifiable credentials, is transparent about their identity and the information they share, and backs things up with sources, wouldn't you trust them? I think that's a conversation worth having. I love the podcast and love listening to you guys talk about TV. Thanks, end quote. That comes in from Summer, writing into decodingtv@gmail.com. So, Patrick, shall I go first on this? You want to go first? What do you think?
Sure. I think Summer makes a good point. I think our response was speaking, like, there's a difference between generalities and specificity, right? Like, in general, if you were to ask me, do I have some suspicion over a doctor engaging and monetizing social media, whether like, YouTube or otherwise? Yeah. Like, just on paper, you say that, it feels a little sus. The fact that there can be, in specificity, doctors that seem very trustworthy on the up and up, but it does not surprise me. And I would not look down on anyone for being like, this feels like just a trusted source in a new media environment. And actually, in some ways, it's easier to get access to that information through these places than others. That makes sense to me. I think the question when it was proposed to us was asking, just like generally speaking, like if like you went to the doctor and left and like, you found out they were on TikTok, would it make you feel weird? Like, yeah, like it would. And like that part has not changed. Even if I agree there are probably doctors doing meaningful, respectable, trustworthy work on a variety of platforms. That's
I agree.
kind of where I end up.
I think I basically agree with what you said. I think my beef with a lot of doctors comes with the fact that they often describe specific cases they have seen. And it's like, yes, that person, you're not naming that person's anonymous, but I think I would be pretty mortified if I was watching my doctor speak about, and then there was this guy that had a giant bowel obstruction came in. And
I put my
had to reach
finger in his butt.
finger
And he was
in
like,
his
and he
butt and get
farted
it
all over me.
right. And then just so you know, if somebody comes in with these things, you probably need to stick a finger up their butt to get their thing. And it's like, okay, that's useful information, but it's like, I don't want to become fodder for that doctor's social media presence. That is my aversion. Now,
I think that's fair, and at the same time, I can imagine that, like, if we ask, there are probably lots of people that write with stories of like, frustrations in the medical system, getting access to the care they need, grinding through the bureaucracy. When you can like watch a video that like acutely describes all of your symptoms and like gives you actionable information without having to go through those layers of bureaucracy, and like that seems like a glass half full version of the of what we were talking. I think what I mentioned last week was like, I don't know, all the COVID stuff, like really, and the RFK, like it just makes me distrust like the entire endeavor. And yet, it's very easy for me to imagine a scenario in which somebody gets access to really meaningful advice and care through social media and other platforms in a way that would otherwise be like impenetrable or just like not affordable to them.
I'm just going to put this out there too, Patrick. So agreed with everything you said. Like, there's definitely a lot of benefits from it. And also, I never said I don't think those doctors should be allowed to do that. I just said I do not want to be their patient. Like, it's fine if they have patients and they're, but I'm just saying that's not for me personally. Like, but yes, by all means, share your wisdom with the world, right? Like, please, I support that wholeheartedly. I just don't want to be part of that corpus of wisdom personally. That's all I'm saying. Which is not to say like I'm against teaching hospitals or being a case there. Like I've actually done that before. So, but just this specific thing of social media. All right. Before we get to our doctor of the week, Patrick Klepek, just a couple of things I want to mention about other cases that were sort of in the back burner on the show. There's the kid Jackson, who is kind of in a terrible state. His sister is waiting for his test results and she's awake and he's sleeping and he's sedated. So we still have yet to see what's going on with that. And Patrick Klepek, man, you have been pretty on the money, dude. You called it. Louis, the guy with the toothache, not in good shape at the end of the episode. And I believe you predicted like things would turn south for him. So maybe your prediction about Dr. Robbie getting in a motorcycle accident at the end of the season is also true.
Do you think, okay, we have not, like we mentioned, we get to see one episode.
Yes, we have not seen ahead. We literally can't see ahead.
We see week of. Yeah, week of. We get it. We get to see him on them. You can watch them Monday. They come out on Thursday. Anyway, so I'm not like asking. I'm putting in the frame of reference to the audience. Like I'm not like vaguely alluding to anything. But like, is Louis alive at the end of the season? Yes or no? I think he is. I think he survives. But I think the cut to black, like if he was gonna die, that was the cliffhanger. The cliffhanger was like he's dead, and like, oh my God, Louis is dead. The fact that Louis is in a bad shape and then cut to black for the next episode gives me some hope that my man Louis, who was about to get like a Coors Light from Dr. Robbie, shouts out Dr. Robbie. I don't know what the like ethical and legal implications are of a man going to give an alcoholic a beer are, but like I support the vibe. I get what you're going for. Do you think Louis is alive at the end of the season?
The
I want
show
him to be
is
a constant. I want him to be every season of the Pit. Louis back. It's Louis. Like we have Barry Weiss corner. We got Louis corner here on the Pit.
I'm gonna say probably yes. The show, I will say, shockingly few people die on the show in general. Like most of the time, what they're trying to accomplish succeeds if they have any chance of being alive.
I think Leg Lady like might be dead.
Well, I'm saying it's quite rare. It's quite rare. So like,
well, I think they keep it for. I think if most people live, the deaths are shocking, right? And if you're going to run a a show in which there's a heightened sense of reality that you have to buy into. If you want the drama to land, it makes sense for most people to even. I'd be if anyone that watches the show has any experience in ERs, like, does this ratio seem about what you would expect, or
in terms
is
of
there
people who
actually
live,
more-
it seems like about 80 to 90% of the people live.
Yeah,
and 10 to 20% of people die. And that's, by the way, I'm not even necessarily counting, like, there's that guy from the motorcycle accident who just like died. He was dead
they didn't
before he
even
came
get to
treat
in.
him. Yeah, he just came in dead, basically.
Yeah,
So like
they didn't do. Look, you get a moment of silence if you died in the pit.
Right, they didn't even do that, basically.
No.
So, all right, we would love to have your feedback and emails. It's been great to see people's reactions to the episodes and to our conversations at decodingtv@gmail.com and also on YouTube at youtube.com/@decodingtv. Patrick Klepek, your doctor of the week.
Dr. Santos. This week, Dr. Santos really stood out to me. Very parent coded this week in terms of, like, I'm just trying to get this one task done so I don't have to do it later. I am constantly being interrupted by all my little children who cannot cannot take care of themselves.
Well, it's because she's not using the AI, Patrick. That's why she's having all that problem.
Well, like, she starts at typing and then goes to the microphone that is dictating.
Yeah.
And then, which I'm sure even the dictating then has to probably be cleaned up by typing if any the dictation software is off, and then is left with, like, quizzically wondering if she should use the the AI. So I just, like, there's a lot of, like, yes, the Pit, like, is a show that really makes you sit with a lot of the nitty gritty of, like, the amazing things that happen over the course of treatment in an ER, but it's also purposely, like, because there's just not a lot of drama associated with, like, ignoring or not focusing on a lot of the kind of, like, boring stuff that, like, makes a hospital work, day to day, week to week, month to month. And so I think finding a way for Dr. Santos to try and engage with that as it relates to her second year residency, constantly getting erupted because it shows she's had increased responsibility. Like, it's just good character work. And also I was like, I've been there. Like, it was good stuff. How about yourself?
I gotta say, Dr. Santos was almost my doctor of the week, which is a huge turnaround from season 1 when she was my least favorite character on the show. But I thought she handled herself very well. She's very competent, just trying to do her job. And I'm actually really appreciating how they're handling that character this season. But I'm gonna go out of the box, Patrick, and say Dr. Ogilvy. And here's why.
Okay.
This is a guy who almost accidentally killed someone last episode. Had to mentally come out of there, right? Treated a woman with tuberculosis. Like, he messed up a few more times this week. Like, he got some diagnoses wrong or not quite right this time. Had to, like, mentally deal with that. Learn how to do a bowel disimpaction manually, and then get shit all over. And it's just like, hey, that's a lot to deal with, and he's still in the game, baby. He's still doing it. He's still handling himself. He's still, and so even though he seems to be an arrogant piece of shit otherwise, this week, I'm saying my doctor of the week is Dr. Ogilvy. Let us know what your doctor of the week is in the comments on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@decodingtv. We'd love to hear. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.